Your first sports memory, thanks to care of your dad. What do you got for me on that one, Ernie Johnson?
First sports memory.
What do you got?
Well, I was only a young shaver when he was playing baseball for the Milwaukee Braves, so I can't. I'm not going to say, oh yeah, I remember him pitching to so and so, but I remember just going to the ballpark with him when he became an announcer. And those were rich times for me because it was, he's on the field doing his pregame interviews. I'm leaning against the batting cage watching Hank Aaron take BP.
Unbelievable.
It's like those were great memories, and then just being able to sit in the booth and watch him do his job. And so I just learned an immense amount about his preparation and his the respect he showed for folks, and how fortunate he always felt to be doing something he loved. And those are the things that stick with you for a lifetime.
What was it like getting to know Henry Aaron, Ernie?
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, if you picture it, Rich, here's a guy taking swings in the cage and then coming back outside the cage, and you say, "So how's your little league team doing?" It's like it was, and it was that way with him. It was that way with Phil Niekro, with a lot of those Braves legends who were on those teams when I was growing up. And so it was, and what was nice is to be able to stay connected to those guys. I know when my dad retired, and I was putting a video together that was going to run on Sports South, the regional cable, the night that he retired, and one of the first guys I reached out to for his memories of my dad was Hank Aaron. He met me down at Atlanta Fulton County Stadium. We sat there and talked about, his saying, "No, I like to hear a lot of announcers call home runs, but there's nobody I like hearing, more than your dad calling one of my home runs." And, thankfully for my dad, he was able to call 500, 600, and 700 as he worked, Braves radio back in the days. And he only had 2 innings of play-by-play in those days. He got to call the 3rd and the 7th inning, and by golly, wouldn't Henry hit 5, 6, and 700 all in one of those innings?
Unbelievable. And then, before he passed, I interviewed Craig Sager and asked him about being at home plate when Aaron crossed it after passing the babe, and just seeing him there in his trench coat and his microphone, and how he kind of talked his way on the field. I think he said something along those lines. I heard the story about
Craig
that.
Could talk his way into anywhere, Rich. He really could, and that's the way he did his job. He always loved being where the big story was going to be, even if it wasn't part of his job. Even if we didn't have that game that night. And this is, he always just wanted to be where the story was. And he was, Craig was a classic. If you just get all tied up in what he was wearing and that kind of thing, you miss the point, because he was a great reporter, asked wonderful questions, asked the questions that nobody else in the room wanted to ask. He didn't care. And so, no, he was a classic. And that piece of video with that same Craig Sager hairstyle, which he had his entire life, and he's got his little Radio Shack tape recorder out there to capture anything he can. And I mean, you can't see that happening. It wouldn't happen anymore. You can't. It'd be like him standing at home plate when Aaron Judge hit his 62nd. It's like him standing in the end zone when somebody scores a touchdown. You don't see it anymore, and that piece of video is just classic.
I'm just going to take a stab here, Ernie Johnson. Did you meet Vin through your dad, Vin Scully? You got any stories about him?
Yeah.
What do you got for me?
Not really many stories about Vin, but yeah, I mean, I met. I would meet Jack Buck, and I would meet Vin. All of the guys that were contemporaries of my father. And I can remember, when we would drive home from a game that he had done, he knew exactly where to tune on the radio and say, okay, now we're going to listen to Joe Nuxall. And listen to, they're going off the air. Listen to what he's going to say. This is the old left-hander, rounding third and heading home. And so he knew exactly where to find all those. So there was really no music in the car when we drove home from a Braves game. It was all, okay, let's catch Jack Buck. Let's see what the Cardinals are doing. Okay, let's catch Marty Brenneman. It was that kind of a deal. And to and to know that he was a contemporary of them was great. And Vin, and I talked about that video I did for my dad.
Yeah.
Vin was part of that too.
I'm sure.
You know, we reached out and said, "Hey, would you say something nice about my dad?" And you could just see as he did this video, it was heartfelt, and you knew it was just one take. You know, it was just Vin being Vin, and then to be doing play-by-play later in the playoffs, you know, and to do a Dodger series and sit in the Vin Scully press box, you know, with Ron Darling and do a playoff game. That was that's stuff you never forget.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.